Hello there everybody, my name's Trevor Hanson. I'm the subject leader of music at the Nicholas Chamberlain School in Bedworth. That's Bedworth in Warwickshire. I'm just here to tell you a little bit about the first steps to playing the trumpet. Now, firstly, if you're watching this, congratulations on making an excellent choice. The trumpet is a brilliant instrument. So we're just going to go through the basic steps of how to make the first sounds and how to hold it and so on and so forth. Just so you can get you going and making your first noises. So here we go. First of all, the trumpet is very easy to put together. It literally is the trumpet itself and the mouthpiece. So the mouthpiece simply inserts into the end of the trumpet like that, and that's it. No more bits to put together, it's just two pieces, the trumpet itself and the mouthpiece. Secondly, I'm going to talk about how to hold the instrument. This is quite important actually, because if you get into bad habits early on, they're quite hard to break. So, first of all, the easy hand, if you like, is your right hand, because that's the hand that plays the valves. So on the top of the trumpet here, we have 3 valves. So if I put my hand around there, you can see there's a little hook for the finger. Little finger goes in the hook. Get my fingers out of the way there. Little finger goes in the hook. Then you've got fingers on each of the valves, and your thumb just holds around underneath there. So you've got a thumb round the side of the front of the valves there. 1, 2, 3 there. Little finger through there, and don't worry if you've got any other bits and pieces on the slides at the moment. They're from sort of more advanced functions as we go along. You won't need those at all for the first year or so. So, little finger in the hook, fingers on the valves, and thumb just underneath the lead pipe there, and so you can 1 finger for each of the valves. Fingers 2, 3 and 4 on each of the valves. Okay, the left hand is slightly more complicated. This is the valve casing that we see there. A lot of the trumpets also have this extra little ring there. So if you've got that little ring, that's, again, it's not of significant importance at the moment, but ideally, depending on the size of your hand, you need to put one of your fingers through there. So it might be that you do your 4th finger, it might be that you do your little finger. I always actually do my little finger. I've got quite small hands, so the rest of my hand, I actually put the 3 fingers round there. The little finger goes into the ring, and my thumb just wraps around the valves at the other end. So in effect, I'm holding the casing. So you can see where it is, and I've got my hands wrapped around that valve casing. Now it doesn't matter if you actually want to hold it like that. It doesn't matter if you want to hold it like that. You'll work out your own way for your particular hand of being able to hold the instrument comfortably. So anyway, I've got a small hand, so I can actually squeeze all my fingers in the middle there quite comfortably, and I can still move that little finger to move the slide on the ring pull should I need to. As I say, you won't need to do that to begin with, you'll just need to hold the instrument. So from that side you can see what it looks like. Okay, you can see my fingers wrapped around there, see the thumb just pushing up to the top, and when I have the other in, one thumb tends to cross over the other. So how you can see that, yeah, so that's basically how it works. You get one thumb in there, one thumb in there. Sometimes you can put your thumb there as well. Essentially, you do what works for you, but your left hand must wrap around the casing. So you've got complete control of the instrument in your left hand. Ideally, your right hand doesn't take any of the weight of the instruments. Yes, you can hold it like that, but when you're playing, the left hand supports the instrument, and you just use your right hand to play the valves. Okay, so that's holding the instrument. I've taken a long time to explain that, but it's not actually that complicated. You'll work it out for yourself on that, depending on the size of your hand. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, we're going to talk about how to create a sound on the instrument. This is obviously done via the lips. Simply, if I just blow through the instrument, I get no sound at all. Okay, so like with any other instrument, you actually have to create the sound by creating a vibration. So on a brass instrument, that's done by buzzing your lips through the mouthpiece. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we take the mouthpiece out. It's going to sound something like this, which sounds pretty awful, doesn't it, really? So how am I doing that? Well, that's actually the top two lips, sorry, the top lip and the bottom lip need to be sort of pushed lightly together, and then you buzz through those lips. So to make a vibrating sound, I'll just demonstrate that for you. Now you'll see that you can actually, over time, develop a lot more control over that buzz and make the pitch of the buzz change. You probably won't be able to do that straight away, because that comes with practice, and that comes with developing what we call the embouchure and the muscles around here. But eventually that becomes very useful because it enables you to change the notes on the trumpet, because you've only got 3 valves, so you actually can play a lot more notes than just 3 or 4 or 5 notes on a trumpet. You can actually play several notes on the same set of valve combinations, as you'll find out as we go along. So let's go back to that buzzing sound. So first of all, yeah, put the 2 lips together and buzz through between the lips. Again, a little bit of practice, a little bit of trial and error, you'll work out how to make the best buzz. But essentially, the 2 lips need to be equal to each other. And then you put that through the mouthpiece. Don't know how I say that. Okay, so the mouthpiece goes nice and central, and you make that buzzing sound. Now the other thing you need to do is to actually start the buzz nice and cleanly, and that's why we use a technique called tonguing technique. Now then, the best way to think about tonguing technique is actually initially just to turn your mouthpiece round and put the sort of end that goes into the instrument into just between your lips. So you're not buzzing now, but you're blowing through it. And then make your tongue sort of stop and start the airflow by using the syllable like t. And you can probably see and hear that I'm going. And each time I do that, I'm kicking air through my lips. Now, if you then put the buzz in the way of that, so you're creating a bit more resistance, but the same tongue action, you actually get a nice clean start to the note. Okay, so it's again a little bit of trial and error. You'll most likely not get it right first time, but like everything, if you keep doing it and keep working it out, you'll feel when it's right, and you'll hear when it's right. So put the mouthpiece back on your face. Now when you breathe, you probably see I'm not actually taking the mouthpiece off my face. Right, I'm just literally just breathing in through the corners. I'm not sucking back through the mouthpiece. I'm literally just letting air in through the corners. So yeah, again, that comes pretty easily over time. That's it's something you get to realise very, very quickly. Okay, so we've talked about the buzz. We've talked about the tonguing. One thing we've not talked about is cheeks. A very common thing with young brass players is that they actually think that to make a louder sound or to make any sound at all, you have to do this. Right, as you can see, my cheeks are all puffing out, and it looks absolutely gross, right? And basically, it's over time you would lose a lot of control of your face muscles if you kept doing that. There is one famous trumpet player that did that all the time, and he was brilliant for it. But it's the exception rather than the norm. So you really need to make sure you keep your cheeks nice and tight when you're producing your buzzing sound. Not not. Okay, so always be conscious of your cheeks. Keep them nice and tight. Okay, so that's the basics of holding the instrument and creating the first sound. once you've got confidence about making that buzzing sound here, you'll actually find it a little bit easier to do that buzzing sound directly through the instruments. And we're going to start, you won't need any of the valves to begin with. So we're going to start literally by not pressing any of the valves. We're going to just produce a buzz through the instrument, and you'll, as a beginner, you'll get one of two notes. Some people get this note, or some people get a low one. Either way, you see that both notes were available. I'll stand sideways for this. Both notes were available without pressing any valve. So here's the higher one. Now you will most likely get the lower one because that requires the least tension on your lips and embouchure. But some people find it very easy straight away to get some of the higher ones, and they find it harder to relax enough to get the lower ones. But your teacher will sort of work with you on the starting notes. So I always try to start on C. Now, incidentally, I'll just tell you this now, without pressing any valves, you can get a whole series of notes. So, and you see they get higher and higher. I wasn't pressing any valves, that's all through the lip tension that's produced there. And you can do the same sort of thing on any combination of valves, and hence you get the idea of a progressive scale of notes that enables you to play tunes even though you've only got 3 valves to press. Okay, let's talk about the principle. Okay, so the valves direct air through the different parts of the instrument. Normally, when I don't press any valves, the air comes straight along here, through there, straight out the other side, and straight through there. If I press a valve, I send the air through an extra bit of tubing. So if I press the middle valve, it sends it through this extra bit of tubing there, which is quite short. Just demonstrate that for you. You'll see that the trumpet still works. Then I press the second valve. Right, because I've taken that bit of tubing out, so we're seeing that the air normally travels round there. So put that piece of tubing back in. And you can see it moves the sound down because of length in the tubing. So the first valve, call it number 1 because it's closest to you. Right, number 1, number 2, number 3. Number 1 closest to you, that goes around that extra bit of tubing there, slightly longer. So you get, and then the longest extra piece of tubing is this one here, right? So it goes around there. So and of course you can press several valves together and you create different lengths of tubing by doing that. Okay, so that's just the mechanics of how the trumpet works and why it does what it does. So we've talked about how to hold the instrument, the right hand on the valves, the left hand around the valve casing. We've talked about the mouthpiece. We've talked about the buzzing. We've talked about tonguing. We've talked about not puffing the cheeks out. And then we've talked about what the valves actually do. They send the air into those different lengths of tubing. Okay, so now it's a case of actually beginning to play some notes. So as I said before, you are most likely as a beginner to first of all pitch that lowest note. So the first thing you need to do is literally to spend a few minutes just repeating that note over and over again. So you get really secure, you can feel it, that you're hitting the note nice and central. If you don't hit a note central, you can get this sort of effect. It wobbles around, it doesn't settle. Whereas when you hit the note through the middle, you'll hear it and you'll feel it, and it will sound. It sound nice and clean. So that's what you're aiming for to begin with. Obviously, I'm standing up to talk to you. You can sit down, and many people do. Certainly, trumpet players and orchestras, cornet players, similar to a trumpet in bands, and that people sit down to play. That's fine, but you should always remember you need a nice straight back, shoulders back, so you can breathe nice and deeply. Because you're going to need lots of air to play this instrument. It's really good for developing your lungs, and so that's why we sit up straight. We always have legs firmly on the floor, even when we're seated. We don't cross our legs. We both legs on the floor, sitting up straight, and then you get with your arms slightly raised, not like this. Right? We don't have to put our arms right out, stick them up there, but likewise we don't sort of clutch them in around our body like that. We just let them feel just naturally. To one side. Okay, so now it's just a case of just working our way up those notes. So you've just played what will be a C. So I'm just going to take you through the notes that take you from C up to the next note that you play with no valves. And that will be a very good place to get to at the end of a first session. In reality, it's going to take you 2 or 3 sessions to get this far. But let's just talk about it now. So there's the first note, which we call C. Okay, our second note, just above it, is D, following the rest of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So we get C to D. Now, D is played with 1 and 3. Okay, 1 and 3. Try and tongue each note. You can slur between the notes. But at this stage, let's make sure we're always getting a nice clean tongue to start each note. Okay, so from that note, we go to the note E. So we've got C, we've got D, then we get E, which is 1 and 2 together. So we got, remember, 1 is closest to you, 2 is the middle valve, and 3 is the one that's furthest away from you at what we call the bell of the trumpet. This flared opening, that's the bell section. So that's where the sound comes out. That's where the third valve is. So we get valve 1, valve 2, valve 3. So we've had C, no valves. We've had D, 1 and 3. We're going to go for E on 1 and 2. And there's a little tune you may well know, using just the notes C, D and E. Each note nicely tongued and nice and clean, and you can get towards that quite quickly, just using those 3 notes. After C, after D, after E, no surprise, we get the note F. That's played on first valve. And after F, we push on up to G, and G is the next note which uses no vowel, so you definitely have to get a much tighter feel on your mouth to get to that area. And if you're doing really well indeed, you might find you can jump from C to G. And just by adjusting the tension there. Never press harder to get higher. That's just going to end up sort of bruising your mouth. You just got to learn to develop the muscles. That's why nothing will happen straight away. Temptation sometimes saying, I'm going to try and get this highest note, so I'm going to press the instrument as hard as I can against my teeth. That's never going to work. And of course, at some point you might find yourself with braces, and it's still possible to play with braces. You put little paddings around them, and the point being, you don't press hard on your mouth. don't press hard with your mouthpiece against your teeth. It should just be a really light, literally just touching. Okay, so that's the basics of the learning to play the instrument. We've talked about how to put it together, very simple. Put the mouthpiece in. We've talked about producing the buzz. We've talked about tonguing to clean buzz. We've talked about how to hold the instruments correctly. The left hand wrapping around the valve casing, the right hand on tops of each valve. And we talked about 1 is the valve closest to you, 2 is the middle valve, and 3 is the one that's closest, furthest away from you, closest to the bell of the trumpet. Okay, so that's really the essence of what I wanted to talk to you about today, and you should now be in a position to sort of just work on getting those nice clean buzzes, and just pitching notes and getting them to just feel nice and clean. Try and play long notes that don't wobble up and down. That's something else. Right? If you're doing this, that's not good. Right? What we're going to do is aim to play the note nice and securely through the middle and be able to and hold the pitch. And that just comes from the breath control, not blowing too hard, not blowing irregularly, just a nice steady column of air. Okay, yeah, covered lots of things there. So the only thing that ever goes wrong with your trumpet, they're very easy to look after, our trumpets. They need the occasional wash through, once every month, 2 months, 3 months. Mine's lucky if it does get washed every 3 months. Often it's more like 6 months. But that's a whole new thing in itself. Playing it day to day, it's the only thing that really goes wrong is you might get a sticky valve. So I'm just going to tell you very quickly how to sort that out. You will need valve oil. Okay, and that can be bought from a shop, or your teacher might have some that they can use and help you put it on. Probably about a £5 for that. That will last you a long time. You hardly use any of it at all on a sort of weekly basis, right? So it sounds, oh, £5, that's a lot of money straight off. Well, it does last you a long time. So what do you do with it? Well, first of all, let's assume my first valve is sticking. Right, it's not working very well. So I can unscrew that. So I'll just show you there. Unscrew this top bit here. That's the best angle to see it at. So I can unscrew that, and eventually I can lift the valve out. Now, the key thing is never to take out all 3 valves at once. Even if they're all sticking, don't take them all out at once, because the right valve has to go back in the right casing. If you don't do that, the trumpet won't work, and you end up sort of, I've got them all mixed up and trying to sort them out. So yeah, just take the valve that you're working on out for a start. I always leave it just at the top there, and squeeze a couple of drops of oil just on there, literally a couple of drops. Don't sort of drown it. It doesn't need that. If it looks a little bit grubby, there might be some black grime or something accumulated. You can actually clean it off with a soft cloth before you actually oil it. And then you literally slide it back in. Now here's the difficulty. It will only go in one way. Now, if I'll show you actually now on there, there is some guides on there, and those guides make the valve go up and down. Okay, so there's a guide here and here. Now, the guide has to slot into the valve casing in the right position. So most trumpets, you can drop it back in, right, and then you have to spin it until you feel it click into place. And once it clicks into place, it won't spin round anymore. So, or alternatively, just look inside and see where the notch is. There's a little notch halfway down, but you get your guide in there. Now, I can't blow through that, so I'm going to twist mine a little bit further, and it locks in again. And mine's now working, so I can now tighten that up. and bingo, the valve works. And then go back in and check it. So if I was doing the same, say for the second valve, again what I would do, I'd unscrew that there. It's a little bit tight, there we are. So I'd unscrew that, take it out. I might put my trumpet down. I might clean off the valve casing. You see it's got all those holes in it, so I might use a cloth to clean that off. I might put a little bit more valve oil on it, and again just a few drops so I can just see it nicely running down the metal. I pick my trumpet up and I put it back in the hole and I spin it till I feel it locked. Now it's locked there, so now before I tighten it up I check I've got it in the right way around, and it blows nice and freely, so I can actually now tighten that up, making sure it doesn't go on cross thread, and there we go. So I could do all three. I only tend to oil my valves when they need doing, so rarely do I do every single valve at once. But sometimes they do all need doing, so but always do them one at a time. The only other moving part on your trumpet is what we call the slides. These are tuning slides. Now, these are used so that when you're playing with an orchestra or a band or a jazz group or a soul band or whatever you're playing in as a trumpeter, you have to make sure you're playing in exactly the right pitch as the other instruments around you. So the trumpet enables you to pull out this slide here, which mine's just a little bit stiff at the end there. Right, so you can move that slide in and out. Now then, what you don't want to do is for these slides to get jammed in, right? They get jammed in, they're very, very difficult to move. So it's a good idea on every week or so just to check all your slides are moving. So mine's moving quite nicely. I've got a slide here in my first valve, so that again moves in and out. I've got a slide here in my third valve, that again moves in and out. Okay, and I've got a slide in my second valve here, which I showed you earlier, just pops in and out. To be honest, you never need to move that second valve, but it just helps when you're cleaning if you can take all those slides out. So all my slides work. If they weren't to work, again, we have something called slide grease, which again, buy a pot of that, again, probably costs £3-4 quid, something like that. I've had this for absolute years, and yeah, it's still nowhere near all used up. Hardly ever use it. So literally a little bit onto your finger, pull your slide out, and just smear it round the thing there, and then as you close up, it should makes sure it's nice. It just keeps a nice layer of smoothness on there, nice, just a grease layer there to make the slide move nice and easily. So that's the basics of playing the trumpet. It's a very, very easy instrument to look after, right? Obviously, you need to care for it. You don't drop it, because if you drop it, you will dent it. So you need to take care of it in that sense. But basically, it's quite a durable instrument. It doesn't require a lot of day-to-day maintenance. It doesn't require you to take it apart every time you put it in its case. You literally take the mouthpiece out and put it in. The only other thing you'll find is that you get condensation building up in the pipe, because you blow on a window on a cold day, and it creates and immediately see condensation on the window. Well, when you're playing an instrument, you're blowing into a cold pipe, so you're creating condensation down inside the instrument, and eventually that will collect as drops of water. So you have a water key here, and what you can do is just pull open that water key. Think about where the water will have collected when you're doing it, because obviously if you turn the instrument upside down, it's not there. So you tip that there. So you tip that up like that, and there you have a nice instrument with the water all emptied, and you can just keep it clear. Sometimes if you haven't emptied the water, you play a note and you hear this bubbling sound, so that tells you need to empty the water. Sometimes do it with the water key, or pull the slides out, and it just and you can just tip any water that's collected in there out. Obviously with COVID, you're best off, your teachers again will be asking you to actually empty your water into a cloth or something like that, rather than, because we don't want you spraying the water around the classroom or around your bedroom or wherever. So just be aware of basic hygiene. You've been blowing into that, so you just need to make sure that you collect the water into a bit of a cloth so it's not released into the atmosphere. That is all from me. I hope you enjoy playing the trumpet. You've made an absolute brilliant choice. So great to see you, and I look forward to hopefully meeting some of you in person over the next few months. Thank you very much.